The Dutch Paris Line, the underground network of ordinary heroes. During the darkest days of World War II, when the world seemed to have lost all hope, there was a secret network, a network of ordinary people, bakers, teachers, farmers, who built something extraordinary. They created a kind of underground railroad that spanned four countries under Nazi occupation. And these people, everyday people just like you and me, managed to save more than 3,000 lives. They did it literally right under the Gestapo's nose. This isn't fiction, this is real, and chances are you've never even heard of it. This is the story of the Dutch Paris Line. The man behind the mission. The year is 1942. Nazi Germany holds almost all of Western Europe in an iron grip. The Holocaust is in full swing. Allied planes are being shot down daily over occupied territory. And escape seems impossible. The borders are sealed. The Gestapo is everywhere. And informants lurk around every corner, in every shadow. But here's the thing about the impossible. Sometimes it just takes the right person to prove it wrong. Let me introduce you to John Henry Weidner. Weidner was a Dutch textile merchant living in France. He was in his early 30s and deeply religious, a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He truly believed that faith without action meant nothing. He watched Jewish families disappear from his neighborhood one by one. He heard about Allied pilots rotting in prisoner of war camps. He saw desperate people trying to flee to neutral Switzerland or Spain. And instead of looking away, instead of saying, "Not my problem," he decided to do something. What started as one man helping a single refugee would grow into the Dutch Paris Line. It became a clandestine network stretching over 1,000 miles, operating across the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and into Switzerland. A network that would orchestrate some of the most daring rescues of the entire war. This is their story. Here's an interesting thing about John Weidner. He wasn't a soldier. He had no training in espionage. He was just a middle-aged businessman who spoke several languages, Dutch, French, and German, a skill that, believe me, would prove invaluable. Born in Brussels to Dutch parents, Weidner had connections across multiple borders. His textile business gave him legitimate reasons to travel. His faith gave him moral conviction. And his personality? Well, his personality gave him the charisma needed to recruit others to an absurdly dangerous cause. In 1940, when the Nazis invaded France, Weidner was living in Lyon. At first, he simply helped Dutch students stranded in France get back home. It seemed simple enough, but as the occupation intensified and the persecution worsened, these simple acts of kindness evolved into something far more ambitious. The early operations were small and improvised. Weidner helped individuals cross into Switzerland, often personally guiding them through mountain passes. He used his business contacts to secure forged documents. He tapped into his church network to find safe houses. But word spreads fast in the underground. People whispered about the Dutchman who could get you out. Desperate families reached out. Allied intelligence began to take notice. By 1942, what had been a one-man show needed to become a structured organization. Weidner began to carefully recruit people he trusted, people who shared his convictions, people willing to risk everything. Creating a rescue network through Nazi-occupied territory required more than just courage. It required meticulous planning, flawless logistics, and absolute secrecy. Weidner established a chain of safe houses from the Netherlands to Switzerland. In Amsterdam, Brussels, Paris, Lyon, Toulouse, and dozens of smaller towns, sympathetic families opened their doors. Farmers, shopkeepers, priests, teachers, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. He recruited guides, men and women who knew every back road, every forest trail, and every poorly guarded border crossing. These guides became the operation's lifeline, leading groups of refugees through hundreds of miles of hostile territory. Forged documents were essential. The Dutch Paris Line developed connections with forgers who could produce convincing ID cards, ration cards, and travel permits. Every refugee needed a new identity, a story that could hold up under interrogation. Communication was handled through couriers.
brave individuals who carried coded messages between cells. No phones, nothing written that could be intercepted. Everything was face-to-face, memorized, and passed on. At its peak, the network grew to include over 300 active members. Farmers hiding people in barns, railway workers pretending not to see, doctors treating the sick without asking questions, police officers tipping off the network about upcoming raids. Security was paramount. The Dutch Paris line operated on a cell structure. Members only knew a few others in the network. If someone was captured and tortured, they couldn't betray what they didn't know. Code names replaced real names. Weidner himself was known as Jean Guillaume, or simply the Hollandais. Meeting locations changed constantly. Safe houses were rotated regularly. Trust was earned slowly and verified carefully. The Gestapo planted informants everywhere. One mistake, one infiltrator could bring down the whole operation. Despite these precautions, the network wasn't impenetrable. The Gestapo knew something was happening. They just couldn't pin it down. Not yet. As the Allied bombing campaign over Germany intensified, hundreds of British, American, and Canadian airmen were shot down over occupied Europe. These men were valuable assets, trained pilots and crew who could return to the fight if they could escape. The Dutch Paris line became a crucial part of the Allied escape lines. Downed allies were hidden by local resistance fighters and then handed over to the Dutch Paris line for exfiltration. The journey was terrifying. An Allied airman in occupied territory stood out. His height, his haircut, his demeanor, everything screamed foreigner. They needed civilian clothes, fake papers, and training on how to act like locals. The network moved them in small groups, usually disguised as laborers or traveling salesmen. They traveled by train, by bicycle, on foot. Every leg of the journey was fraught with danger: checkpoint inspections, random patrols, suspicious civilians. But the most vulnerable people the Dutch Paris line rescued were Jewish families fleeing the Holocaust. By 1942, the Nazi final solution was in full operation. Jews across occupied Europe were being rounded up and deported to concentration camps. Survival meant escape. The Dutch Paris line did not discriminate. They rescued Jewish families from the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. Men, women, children, entire families fleeing annihilation. These rescues were even more dangerous than helping Allied airmen. Jewish refugees often had no papers at all. Many didn't speak French or Dutch. Children could accidentally give them away. The penalties for hiding Jews was immediate execution. Even so, the network persisted. Weidner's religious convictions were clear. Every life was sacred. His network hid Jewish families in attics, basements, and barns. They forged baptism certificates to disguise Jewish identities. They created entirely fake backstories. The emotional toll on everyone involved was immense. Families said goodbye in tears, never knowing if they would reunite. Guides witnessed unimaginable suffering. Members of the network lived with the constant knowledge that discovery meant death. The network also evacuated Dutch students and resistance fighters wanted by the Gestapo, young men fleeing forced labor drafts, intelligence agents who needed a way out, political dissidents marked for arrest. These evacuees often brought valuable intelligence with them, information on German military positions, factory locations, and troop movements. The Dutch Paris line worked in coordination with Allied intelligence services, becoming not just a rescue operation, but an intelligence pipeline. To understand the Dutch Paris line, you have to understand the geography of occupied Europe. The network operated across 4 countries, each with its own set of dangers and conditions. The Netherlands, the starting point for many. It was heavily occupied, and the flat terrain made movement difficult. The Dutch resistance was brave, but it was riddled with German double agents. Belgium was a key transit country. Brussels served as a major hub, and the line coordinated closely with the well-organized Belgian resistance. France was the heart of the operation. France was split between the German-occupied north and the Vichy-controlled south. Lyon became Weidner's base of operations, the point where routes branched out towards Switzerland and Spain. Switzerland, the goal, neutral territory, safety. But crossing into Switzerland was the most perilous part of the journey. The border was crawling with both German and Swiss guards, and the Swiss, officially neutral, had complicated policies, sometimes shifting regarding refugees. The Dutch Paris line operated several routes, adapting constantly as German security tightened. Amsterdam to Lyon to Switzerland. The longest haul, refugees were guided through Belgium into France, connected with couriers in Paris, and escorted south to Lyon. From there, guides took them to the border near Geneva or Annecy. This could take weeks of hiding in safe houses and surviving nerve-wracking ID checks on trains. Brussels to Paris to Toulouse to Spain, an alternative route heading southwest toward the Pyrenees. This was mainly used for Allied airmen. Crossing the Pyrenees in winter was brutal. Guides led groups through freezing mountain passes to avoid German patrols. One